Ron, it's great to interview you. Thank you very much for coming along today. What would be great is if we could have a sort of quick catch up on your situation, how you're doing at the moment.
Sure. So last time I posted on my website or on YouTube was in late December, and at that point I was preparing to have a periodontal surgery to augment the bone in front of my upper front teeth, because that bone was basically destroyed during previous orthodontic treatment, specifically the AGA treatment. If you look at the CBCT of before I started AGA compared to the CBCT when I finished with AGA, then you'll see that there's the bone loss occurred during AGA. So basically what that means is that my front teeth became loose and became very weak and compromised as a result of that treatment. And so when I went to do a periodontal surgery to correct that, and also to augment some other areas in order to get some more expansion through a treatment called Wilcodontics or SFOT. What the periodontist discovered when he examined me and he examined my CBCT was that the bone loss was so severe in this area, basically in front of these teeth right here, right in this area, was that he couldn't even operate on me because it was too compromised, too broken to even be fixed. So I never had the surgery, and for the past several months I've been basically on ice, unable to do any sort of orthodontic movement until I correct this bone issue in front of these teeth, because they're too weak to move aggressively. And so I finally found a periodontist who is going to do a very minimally invasive type of bone graft on these teeth called tunnel grafting. It's also called smart grafting. Smart grafting is kind of like a brand of tunnel grafting. And I was scheduled to have that done in early April. However, of course, the COVID has brought all orthodontics to a grinding halt. So just like probably so many others who are in the process of getting orthodontic treatment, I'm on hold right now, awaiting that tunnel grafting surgery so that I can continue with my orthodontics to wrap up my MSc expansion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, the flip side is I've got time to do things like this.
Right.
It's an interesting...
I'd like to say one more thing, Mike. So while you've taken this COVID opportunity to kind of be more active online and interface more with the public, my website, as people may or may not know, which is jawhacks.com, has been down.
We'll put a link to that as well.
Thank you. It's been down since December, but it's back up now. But it's been down because I had such a hard time finding a periodontist to operate on my front teeth that I needed to minimize the baggage that came along with my treatment. And of course, being a patient who's in the public eye and who thousands of people are watching the outcome of everything that I do in terms of my orthodontics, that was too much for the periodontists I was seeing to deal with. And I wanted to eliminate I didn't want them to be afraid of treating me and having it go public that something went wrong or something like that. So I shut my website down while I was attempting to find a periodontist to operate on me, and that's exactly what I did. And so I haven't been able to take advantage of this time to interface with the public about these issues, but I'm hoping to starting now again.
Well, Ron, you know, you've put yourself through some potentially dangerous, as you've found out, techniques, and the way you've spread the knowledge that you've gained from this is hugely beneficial. You know, don't underestimate the importance of the journey you've been on to other people.
Well, I appreciate that.
And in a way, that's why I wanted to do this event, is because lots of people out there are in a way, experimenting themselves. And that's why I specifically wanted to interview you as part of this. And we want to understand what in it. We want to look, we want to bring some science to this experimentation and try to gain as much knowledge from what people are doing. And I understand that case examples are one of the lowest forms of science. However, it teaches us something. You know, we do publish case examples in orthodontic literature and in general medical literature, and they give us some information. And it's important that we're looking now at individuals such as yourself, and there are many other individuals. I've been in email conversations with a lot of people who are doing interesting things. And what I really want to do, and I want to do this again, is be reaching out to people to say, okay, well, what have you tried? What are your thoughts on it? And let's try and get some real hard data, something out of what you've done, so that we can gain a better understanding and help others.
Sure.
Now, did you want to add anything else?
Did I want to add anything else?
About your particular situation at the moment?
No, that's pretty much it. Everything that came before that can be learned about on my website, jawhacks.com, or through my YouTube channel, but that's the update since I've posted last. So thanks for giving me a chance to air that out.
Right, can I make a couple of comments back on that particular, on your comments on?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's very important for people to take good records, but also remember that you do get two sets of teeth, but most people watching this will be on their second set, and you're not going to get another set of teeth. Implants are no real alternative. They're not nearly as good as natural teeth. It's important that we remember that teeth sit in a balance zone. Most of you who are currently don't have an appliance in your mouth, your teeth are safe. If you start moving your teeth out of the balance zone, you are going to risk causing damage in a very similar manner that Ron has. Yes, the Agar appliance was pushing those top front teeth forwards out of their balance zone. And of course, what that meant was the front surface of the teeth was considerably outside the balance zone. And so, since you hadn't changed your balance zone enough, the front surface, what we call the facial surface, you've had some resorption on, and probably actually on the other surface as well. And when teeth erupt, when they're first developing, they build bone. There isn't another opportunity like that in your lifetime. And so it's very much harder later to build the bone. And a lot of the blood supply to this bone actually comes through the skin on the surface of the bone. So if you lift that skin up to operate on that area, you risk damaging the vital blood supply to that bone, which is one of the reasons the surgeon wants to be cautious now, and very sensibly cautious. So he's not disturbing that blood supply. And of course, one of the other things is remember that function, so stress through the teeth on a normal, normal range of stress definitely helps to build bone up on all the teeth. So if stressing your teeth, mastication, exercise, usage helps to build bone up. And we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, if I could just comment briefly, Mike. So the reason that periodontist wouldn't do the procedure that I was supposed to do in January because that procedure involved flapping the gums, like you say, which is to peel the gums back, which would have stripped those already compromised teeth of their blood supply. And the surgery that I am going to do is called tunnel grafting, and tunnel grafting does not involve flapping the gums. Tunnel grafting involves making a small slit in the gum and then injecting bone matter through the small slit without ever actually peeling the gums back. And so this is the procedure that hopefully is going to bail me out and allow me to augment that region without stripping it of the blood supply. But I would just like to also throw my support 100% behind what you said. Yeah, like I messed around with the wrong appliances and it screwed up my teeth really, really, really bad. And I have not been shy about admitting that. And one of my missions now is to warn people about especially the AGA appliance, because it's advertised as, no, the people who do this are not warned that it's pushing the teeth, as you say, out of the balance zone. They're told that it grows bone, but in my case, that's definitely not what happened. And I should add that I'm also very friendly with another woman who, she had AGA, and her damage to her teeth is so severe that she is going to have her 4 front teeth extracted, and she's going to have a bridge put in. So this AGA appliance literally was a prolonged extraction of her front teeth. So this is serious stuff, Mike.
Yeah. I clearly, as a professional,
I ran across the 30-minute record time, so I've got to start over. Okay, all set. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just saying, as a professional, I'm always going to be cautious about recommending or not recommending any types of treatment, whether it be AGA or anything else. A reflection of AGA is I'm surprised how quickly AGA went from an idea to a very well marketed concept. And when I see this, I worry about the skills of individual practitioners and whether they've had enough experience doing these things. And if anyone goes to a practitioner, don't worry about asking them if they've done a procedure many times and asking to meet people who have had that procedure, because I'm sure there will be variations in skill between the best and the worst people in any type of system. And I'm going to always be cautious about saying that the system isn't particularly good. I don't know. What I like to do is look at it from a scientific perspective and say, right, what are the causes? How is this system affecting the causes of the problem?
Right.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I do want to add just a hair more about the AGA, since we're talking about it now. I don't want to make this all about AGA, but to your point, it's not good enough to just ask an AGA provider if they've done this before, because the issue with the AGA providers is that they seem to be, wherever they're going to learn about how to do this appliance, whether it's at LVI or at FBI, they seem to be indoctrinated with misinformation about how this appliance works. And these providers of AGA actually believe what they're being told about this false science of how AGA works, and then they're going and they're reiterating that false science to their patients. And so this is the danger, Mike, is that not only is this appliance in and of itself potentially dangerous, especially in the hands of someone who's inexperienced, but there's this whole propaganda kind of fantasy religion around it, that the dentists have this false idea of its safety based on this misconception that it grows bone when it clearly doesn't, at least not in my case and in the case of several others that I've talked to. So there's an extra level of caution that patients considering AGA need to have, and that's that they need to know that their provider has probably been indoctrinated with this misinformation about the science behind it. So look, Mike, I almost lost my 4 front teeth, and I know a woman who will lose her 4 front teeth to this appliance, and I know at least 5 others who are in that same dangerous area. So look, you don't have to stress the danger of this thing, and this is really my message, but I do want to put it out there because I don't want to see anyone lose their front teeth.
You and other people, the opportunity. You clearly have your own channel. You have your own following, and that's great. However, there's a lot of people out there who don't have their own channel, who don't have their own following, and they've got to be able to express their opinions equally.
Yes, and I will also say that you said, how did AGA go from an idea to the most popular orthodontic appliance on the internet so quickly? I would say that I'm partially responsible for that. I mean, the early period of my blog was a promotion of AGA because I was going through the treatment. I was seeing those gaps form. It appeared to me that my maxilla was growing. I was excited. I was sharing the news with other people. I was posting on Facebook. People were referencing my blog in support of AGA. So I would say I'm partially responsible for AGA becoming so popular so quickly. And you know, I fed people the Kool-Aid. I drank the Kool-Aid and I fed people the Kool-Aid. And so now it's my responsibility to be equally as aggressive with my discovery of its true nature. So that's why I feel especially compelled to go the extra mile to say what I'm saying to you right now.
Yeah, no, I respect that, Ron. Because, you know, you've taken personal responsibility and that is to be respected.
Sure.
I don't think AGA's the only appliance out there that we could say very similar things about. And there's a lot of appliances out there that I haven't had enough time or enough investigation, and there's a lot of things I would worry about.
No doubt.
You know, I sometimes think I'm overcautious in what I do, what I provide. I've got lots of ideas. I'm trying out lots of different things. I've made mistakes, but I think I've been a lot more cautious. I mean, you know, you can't find a orthotropic, or what I call the pearly orthotropic provider anywhere outside of this office, because I'm not promoting it. I'm not trying to bang the drum that this is wonderful until I'm really certain that I never cause a problem like the one you went through.
No doubt. No doubt.
Anyway, so Ron, you know, we're talking about these various different appliances, and I just like your sort of personal viewpoint on that balance of the appliance and the what you do yourself. And you know,
yeah,
what sort of, rather than talking about specifics like the AGA appliance, we could talk just about expansion, about sagittal expansion or transverse expansion, and you know, the generalities of appliances and the generalities of what you do as an individual.
So I would like to say that I started this whole process in 2014 when I discovered you online in 2014, and so I started at that point experimenting with mewing. No appliances, no, I guess you could say artificial expansion, just mewing. I was living at a Buddhist monastery at the time. I was sitting in meditation. Yeah, it's not as peaceful and you know, all skittles and rainbows as it sounds. It was actually a lot of hard work. You know, the whole idea behind a monastery is that it's supposed to induce suffering in you, and then you're supposed to use the Buddhist teachings to kind of find your way out of that suffering. So it's actually kind of a boot camp type situation where I was meditating like 6 to 8 hours a day, and I was experimenting with, well, my body is doing this, you know, I'm in lotus position, but what about my face? What about my head? And the Buddha actually taught to press the tongue on the roof of the mouth. In 3 different instances in the Pali Canon, he explicitly says, during meditation, keep the tongue pressed firmly on the roof of the mouth. And so I was practicing this, and as many mewers do, I quickly became kind of engulfed in it. And I became obsessed with, wow, how many hours per day can I maintain this? And what kind of results can I get from this? And can I actually expand myself using just my tongue? I did that for 2 years, Mike, and I did not have any success getting the type of expansion that I was hoping to get. I did strengthen the hell out of my tongue.
How old were you when you started this, if you don't mind me asking?
Right, good question. I was 24 when I started. Yep, so probably on the outer edge of probably not going to get much in terms of expansion from mewing.
I mean, clearly it's an equation of how much time and effort put in versus how old you are. And of course, an age is it's different for everyone.
No doubt. No doubt. So my experience was that mewing did not cause me to expand to a significant degree. Now, it did give me other benefits. It did strengthen my neck, it strengthened my tongue, it helped me become a nose breather. It helped me to keep my mouth sealed most of the time. It was good for my meditation, even though I wasn't expanding, or at least to a noticeable degree. It was beneficial with regards to all the soft stuff. And so even now, I always tell people, you know, even if you're not mewing for expansion, mew because it's good for you. Mew because it's good for your soft tissue. So that was my experience. Mewing didn't expand my bone at age 24 to 26, but it did and still continues to strengthen, provide integrity to the soft tissue of my face, my neck, really my whole body. And it's really the critical exercise for promoting nasal breathing, which is just so important. I mean, nasal breathing is the name of the game.
I think I want to take you beyond breathing, because I think that I see the non-mainstream orthodontists have latched onto breathing, and it's the new big thing. Well, of course, we were talking about breathing 30, 40 years ago, and I think we're going to uncover so many more benefits of improving your oral posture and function, and of course your body posture and function, apart from just airways or of course the dental structure, and with that facial structure. And you know, that's why I wrote my thesis, Craniofacial Dystrophy, trying to highlight that all of these things are, well, we're all one body and it's all connected. And when I see these mewers gaining good facial changes, of course I'm saying you're gaining good improvements in your general health in multiple ways we probably I don't yet understand.
No doubt. No doubt. I agree 100%. I mean, it's you know, it's one of those things maybe where, you know, people talk about how sunlight is good for vitamin D, right? People focus in on this one small benefit of this obviously much larger, much larger. It's obviously sunshine is important. It's a natural thing. It's healthy, and people focus on, oh, it's essential for vitamin D. Maybe the way that people focus on mewing, oh, it's essential for breathing, when in reality mewing is a natural posture that undoubtedly is critical to a whole host of full body health benefits. So I agree with you.
Where were you?
I see. So I was telling you about how I walk the fine line between mewing for expansion versus appliances for expansion versus, you know, the interaction between mewing and appliances. All right, so yeah, so I'll cut to the chase about expansion. So I had a good experience with expanding with the MSE appliance. And if I could go back to 2014 or 2016 when I started all this, so I started mewing in 2014, I started my first expander in 2016. If I could go back to 2016 when I decided that mewing wasn't enough for the expansion that I wanted to achieve, the only
I just want to reinforce the fact that although mewing is very central, you know, oral posture is very central, some people are going to need some assistance. And, you know,
I needed assistance. I needed assistance.
I would completely concur with that.
And when it comes to assistance, the only appliance that I would do if I could start over again is the MSE appliance. Why? Probably because I had this trauma regarding the bone loss around my front teeth because of the AGA appliance, and so I really would not want to do any appliance that risked damaging my teeth, just because I've seen what a pain in the butt it's been for me to go through that. So the MSE is a bone-borne expander, and I think I've seen you reference it in a video of yours, so I know that you're familiar with it.
There's more. I mean, Ron, I actually started doing some MSE. It was going relatively well. I messed up on one person, I caused some problems. I wasn't the most massive problems. I think nothing compared to where you are now. But clearly, I very much liked this guy I did it with. We had a very good relationship. He was very aware of what I was doing. And when we caused a problem, I suddenly realized that I have the world ganging up to try and shoot me down. I'm being very successful in these areas I'm doing. So I just wanted to back down a little bit, take a breath of fresh air, and I want to come back to doing some MSE myself. I want to go and have pre-COVID, my plan was to attend a lecture of One Moon, spend some time with One Moon later this year, and go back to the MSE. Because, like you say, I think that there's a lot to be had in MSE. Although, clearly, you need to be able to mew as well, and don't just imagine that there's a magic appliance that's going to do everything for you.
Right. So on that note, I will say that mewing with MSE is quite possible, and it's quite easy actually. So just to compare mewing from appliance to appliance, my first appliance was an acrylic sagittal expander, a traditional kind of plastic and wire type expander, very bulky, sat on the entire roof of my mouth, and I had a very hard time mewing with that because it occupied the front of my maxilla as well as the sides and the back. But with MSE sits in the back of the mouth on the maxilla. So it actually leaves the entire front half or more of the palate available for resting the tongue there. So, a lot of people struggle to get the back of the tongue up anyway, and when they're trying to learn mewing, I find that at the very least they want to be able to get the front of their tongue up. Right? I know that's not the whole, it's a start though. It's better than nothing. And so MSE allows you to very easily, without any abrasion, rest the tongue, the front of the tongue, really the front half of the tongue, not just the tip, but a big chunk of the front of the tongue on the upper front in mid area of the maxilla. And after a few months, I know it sounds like a lot, right? A few months, but after a few months, even the back of the tongue can start to come up, and it becomes kind of calloused and leathery due to its constant abrading with the MSE appliance over the course of weeks or months. And
you get used to it.
You've missed out before you go on. You've missed out. So you had the acrylic appliance, a normal type expander. Then you had the agar. How did you find the agar for getting your tongue on the roof of the mouth?
It was okay. It was okay. Because the agar it's a very low profile appliance, much lower profile than the sagittal appliance or even the MSE. But I mean, I don't even, look, Mike, I don't even want to speak in those terms because I would just never recommend, given the state, I would never recommend anyone do that appliance based on my experience with it. So
you had 3 different types of appliances.
Right.
And you found the acrylic removable appliance, the most bulky and got in the way of mewing the most.
That's correct. That's correct.
And then the effects of the expansion, because I've heard you say this before, because the MSE is going to go relatively quickly.
Yeah, if it goes smoothly.
Yes, if it goes smoothly. So within a few months, you've got a lot more space.
Oh yeah, it's very, very sudden. It's like flipping a light switch. I mean, the agar was like a dimmer in terms of the oral volume, like it was slowly increased, but the MSE was very much like on and off. Within 2 months, I had an intermolar width increase of about 1 centimeter. So with every turn of the MSE, you can feel additional tongue space. I mean, with every turn, Mike, with every turn, you can feel your bite change. You can feel an increase in space.
To another point, because clearly it's always difficult for me to know what's happening in the mouths of other people. Well, what I've often felt is that when you put fixed appliances in your mouth, it changes the way the teeth bite together, and it makes it less comfortable to bite together. So you bite together less often and less hard when you do so. And this has often been my criticism of fixed appliances. Now, when you had the MSE, you've clearly expanded the upper arch far faster than the lower arch, so your teeth didn't bite together as well.
Right.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I can. So MSE for me has been not a smooth sailing, and that's mostly because of, like I said, the damage that was done to my front teeth from AGA. Now let me backtrack a little bit. Like you said, MSE blows open the maxilla in this direction. Okay,
So
what that did for me.
That's what most people think expansion is, transverse expansion. We just kind of forget about sagittal expansion, but let's stick with transverse. Yes, the AGA, the MSE.
Right, so the transverse expansion with MSE is sudden and it's dramatic. And you're right, your bite starts to get wonky very quickly. And the contact, assuming you had good contact to start, which I did. And so most orthodontists would probably say, well, then why the hell did you touch it? If it wasn't fixed, if it wasn't broken, why'd you try to fix it? Well, because I wanted expansion. So I was already in good occlusion, and so then I blew open my maxilla transversely, and that created bite issues. It made it so that the upper teeth weren't contacting the lower teeth as well as they had been previously. Now, this was supposed to be corrected, Mike, very quickly and very swiftly through orthodontic expansion of the lower arch, facilitated by. So what we were going to do was we were going to do this Wilcodontics, this SFOT, which was we were going to add bone around the lower jaw, and then we were going to blow it open with, I'm not even sure, either Invisalign or probably a traditional acrylic expander on the lower. Okay, my orthodontist uses a variety of different traditional and non-traditional expansion devices. So we didn't even get there though, Mike, because when I went to do this procedure, the periodontist didn't want to touch me because of the condition of my upper teeth. And so the question is, well, why didn't he at least do the procedure on your lower teeth if your upper teeth were damaged? And the answer is, I don't know, and I can't explain that, because basically when he saw my upper teeth, he said, look, sorry, I don't want to touch you. Take your money back and please go. So we didn't even get to talk about it. But you're right, Mike. So I have a video on YouTube called "Don't Do MSE Without a Plan for the Lower." And your point is a good one. The MSE will blow open your maxilla transversely, and that does create occlusion issues, and you need to have a plan for how to expand the lower so that you can maintain that good bite. And because of the slowdowns caused by the damage of my front teeth and by COVID, I have not actually been able to correct that. And so right now I have a pretty severe issue in terms of my bite, where the upper teeth and the lower teeth are not coming together well, and I'm eager to get that fixed.
Tell me, if you put your fingers in your master, so when I make an assessment of individuals, so when I'm doing exam and frequently during treatment, I'll take all 4 fingers and I'll place them on the occlusal plane. So imagine the way the teeth bite together. So imagine if you're going to bite onto something like that plane. I'll put my 4 fingers along the muscle with the first finger at the back, the ascending ramus as we call it, and I'll put the fingers evenly distributed along the masseter, and I'll ask patients to bite together. And they'll clench and they'll relax, clench and relax, and I get a feeling of the size of the masseter, the how much bulk of or strength there is going on. And what I notice is, as soon as someone has fixed appliances, or as soon as someone started expansion in the upper, and in your situation, they've widened the upper more than the lower, the muscles just, they won't engage. You can feel the bulk of muscle, but the body just won't allow most of that muscle to work. Because it's just switching it off, because it is worried about the potential effects of all of that muscle working when you don't have a comfortable biting surface.
Yeah, and I'd say that that's probably happening to me, Mike. Honestly, I'll tell you, it sucks not having a good bite. And
when we're looking at the cause of this problem, that biting effect is number one, the muscle effect. So, we talk the muscle effect, then the posture, then other things going down, like the function and things like this.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, and I would say other people should avoid getting into the situation that I've gotten myself into. Definitely. Yep, and then, the other thing I would say is, so anyway, my situation, Mike, was complicated by the fact that I had this issue with my upper teeth because of the AGA appliance. And so I think hopefully most people won't be in a situation where they're going into MSE with compromised alveolar bone. So hopefully my situation is unique with regards to how difficult it's been. But I would caution anyone doing MSE or any type of aggressive expansion, just be aware of the status of your alveolar bone and make sure that it's not going to limit you with regards to the orthodontic movement that you can do after the fact to correct the occlusion. That's one thing, Mike, that people who want to expand, they don't think at all about it, but it's really important, and that's the status of the alveolar bone and the health of the teeth. And people, it's not a sexy thing to think about, but it's...
Most people are in a safe position. If you start moving the teeth on their own, you could potentially moving them out of the balance zone, out of this envelope that we talk about in dentistry, and you can leave the bone behind. Bone generally moves temporarily with teeth, but it will want to go back to its balance zone, and if the teeth are being held out of the balance zone, it will go back and leave the teeth behind. And teeth without bone, as you can tell us from experience, is not a pretty sight.
No, or a pretty feeling. Man, every time I bite into something on my front teeth, which I haven't been able to do in over a year actually, but every time I accidentally bite into something on my front teeth, it's like I have to check to make sure the tooth is still there. That's how bad it is, Mike.
In a way, your inability to bite on these front teeth is not encouraging new bone formation.
Sure.
And, it's like when you come out of surgery and you've gently got to build yourself back up to being an athlete again.
Yeah, Mike, I think my situation in many ways has been a case where I'm too broken to be fixed at those front teeth. So it's a shitty situation.
Yeah. But you've definitely found that this expansion has been fundamental to your ability to get the tongue on the roof of the mouth.
Yes. Oh yeah, we haven't talked much about the benefits of the expansion, but I guess we can talk about that now. So the MSE is the only expansion that I think is worth having, and so immediately what you notice when you expand with the MSE is that the oral volume increases, which allows you, let's say you're someone like me who for years had been trying to mew before doing the appliance-based expansion, right? Immediately, mewing is going to become a whole order of magnitude easier. It's like you're going to realize that you were trying to run a marathon with a broken leg before, and now you have two legs, and it's like, wow, this really is a natural thing. This really doesn't require 6 hours a day of focused effort. It's really quite effortless, assuming you have the real estate to do it. And so MSE, for the first time in my life, by increasing my intermolar width a centimeter, which is just ridiculous, Mike,
every child that comes in.
Wow.
That's my standard procedure. We always go 12 millimeters. 10 to 15 millimeters of expansion is just normal for me.
Wow. Man, the hardship I would have avoided if I had been born in England and became your patient. No, seriously though. Seriously,
But it's still, you know, it's we're not far off charitable work. What I do, you know, we are moving it forward. But I can't literally treat that many patients for the time and effort it takes me to monitor and observe them. But we're moving this forwards, and we're moving it forward very well. And, you know, we need to be helping more people. Ron, one thing, did you get many blocked noses before the MSE?
I did, and I used to use nasal strips, and I used to use the Breathe Right inserts, especially in the winter when it was hot and stuffy here in New England. I am in Massachusetts. And since the MSE, I have not had a single stuffy nose. And that is the second benefit that I was going to tell you about, is the breathing. Is just, it's like, I can't believe I lived any other way for so many years. Sleeping has just become restful again, or really for the first time that I can remember. And the other thing, Mike, that has really... With MSE. You're recording.
My camera stopped.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Okay, let's just continue.
So before the camera cut out, I was talking about how the first benefit of MSE is the increased oral volume, the facilitated mewing. The second benefit is the breathing. No more stuffy noses, and then obviously improved sleep, and then of course, so the last point I wanted to make about that was exercise. So ever since I got MSE and I expanded with it, for the first time in my life, I've been able to develop a running habit. So I've always wanted to learn how to run, Mike. I've always, especially barefoot running, I've always, because you know, I'm into natural exercise, natural movements, natural health. So 10 years ago, I started trying to learn barefoot running. And I was never able to get it going. But after I did MSE, I found it just much more easier to breathe while running through my nose, to take big, wide open, fresh, deep breaths through my nose while running. And then also, my neck posture became so much better because I was, you know, had my tongue up and spread, and I was breathing so effortlessly that my whole body kind of came together. And that, you know, that enters you into this positive feedback loop where, okay, now I'm running every day.
Yeah,
and
a virtuous cycle of change.
Yeah, that's a big cycle of change, Mike, is exercise, and especially running. I mean, if you can run even for a mile a day, I know that's not much, but a mile a day of running is life-changing.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the fact that 10 minutes of brisk exercise, brisk walking a day can make a substantial difference on people's levels of heart attacks.
Sure. And you know, for me, it's not really about heart attacks, at least at the forefront of my mind. You're referring to like scientific studies, and I'm more referring to my own, you know, introspective kind of feeling of how this is affecting me. My happiness and my sense of peace and contentment has gone through the roof since I started running. I mean, I run first thing in the morning, and for the rest of my day, I'm just in a better mood. And I'm not talking about I'm running 5 miles. No, I'm running like a mile or two. You know, I started off at 0.25 miles. I have a treadmill that I run barefoot on. 0.25, and then in the next month I added another quarter mile, and then in the next month another quarter mile. And then the month after that, I realized I could run 2 miles pretty effortlessly. And so that's what I do. I run 2 miles every morning, and it's just like night and day, man. Like my life has been, it's like I woke up out of a, you know, rainstorm into a bright sunny day is how I feel. And so I would give a big part of the credit of that to the MSE and to the effect that it's had on my breathing and my neck posture.
Yeah. Did you see that video that I did called the abs walk?
No.
It's annoying because I had to take it down for various reasons, or one certain reason, where I talk about getting the back third of your tongue up on the roof of the mouth and then pushing your head backwards a little bit. So you're taking the center of your, the weight of the mass of your head is going further back on your body by using the back third of the tongue. And this is, you can use a chin tuck to get you there, but don't hold it with your neck muscles. You hold it with your tongue. And then you think back third of your tongue and your big toes. So next time you're barefoot walking, just be thinking, using the back third of your tongue to literally push your head back and keep it up on the top of your body, and then think your big toes. Just run like that and see how that affects, because I found when I did that properly, barefoot walking came to me, having tried so hard.
Wow, and I'm doing it right now, and I'm feeling what you're saying. When you really emphasize the back of the tongue, it sort of it tucks the chin and it holds it there. Say that again. I missed.
Feel your abdominal muscles. As you do that, do you feel your abdominal muscles working?
A little bit. I mean, I'm sitting right now, so you know, it's limited, but.
So, and that's what I think, that's what gives you good abs. Having the back third of the tongue. And I talk about Thomas Myers and his, the pattern, the trains, the anatomy trains. Anyway, I went into that. I had to take the video down because of, well, what I think is suppression, but there we go, that's my opinion. And when I do look at skulls of not even that long ago, only 100, 200 years ago, what I'm seeing is these huge, great big intermolar widths as normal. You know, the type of intermolar width you will have, I don't know what your intermolar width. I seem to remember from looking at some of your videos, you had an okay intermolar width to begin with.
37 to begin with, and now I'm 47.
Yeah. Yeah, and where are you measuring? From the between the minimum width between the molars?
I'll show you.
Measuring from the inside of this tooth, from the inside of this tooth to the inside of this tooth.
This tooth.
Yeah, Ron, you've just gone off camera. I don't know which camera you're using.
I went off my.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The inside of this tooth to the inside of this tooth.
So the minimum width between them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, wow. So you had a reasonable intermolar width to begin with?
Compared to some people, yeah, it was reasonable.
I always find that there's such individual variation in these things, like there's such individual variations in almost anything you do in orthodontics, that it kind of throws a spanner in your ability to assess what's happening at any one time. But when I see these, only a couple of 100 years ago, when I see our ancestors from only a couple of 100 years ago, I'm seeing them, they've all got really quite decent intermolar widths. And when you look at their nasal capacities, they're really quite decent. And I think it's almost like we've hit the buffers in the last couple of decades.
Something has happened, obviously, because finding a big maxilla these days is like finding a needle in the haystack. So, I mean, when you see someone with robust, I think you referred to it earlier as angular, when you see someone with angular structure now, it's like, it really strikes you because it's rare and it's very attractive, and but very rare, very rare.
Well, I remember going to Baylor College in Texas, in Houston? No, not Fort Worth. Anyway, so I went to Baylor College in Texas, and I wanted to visit the orthodontic department, and the professor very kindly saw me at basically very short notice. But I was waiting in the anteroom to meet the professor, and there they had all of the journals, the annual books. I mean, I think this is where Facebook got its initial idea from, and you could put them up and you could see an image and a write-up of all the students. And suddenly an idea came to me, and I went and picked out the very oldest one, back from about, I think, the 20s. And I start looking at the facial forms. And yeah, I can understand at that time it was very much more selective who went to university. It was predominantly white, it was predominantly male. But these guys, to a T, nearly every single one of them had these solid angular jaws sitting there, with, impressive facial form. And not everyone, not by any means, but a good chunk of them. And then I went to the other end and I pulled up a book and I looked at that and it was a completely different picture. And this is less than 100 years that's passed.
Yeah, something has happened and it's been sudden and it's been drastic and it's causing a lot of people a lot of problems.
Yeah, a lot of health problems going down from it.
And not just health problems, but there's a lot of, I mean, you know this, Mike, I don't have to tell you, but there's a whole other half of the people who find you and who find me are people who are unhappy with the way they look. Right.
And the constant thing I hear back from them is, I knew there was something wrong. I knew, in my soul, I knew that the way I looked didn't match how I should have looked.
Yeah.
And that just, I hear that too frequently to dismiss it out of hand.
No, Mike, if people feel like they're not good looking enough to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a friend even to be taken seriously in a crowd of people, that does damage on your soul. That does damage on your soul, and it's not a vain thing to want to look better. If your sex life is, if you're not happy with your sex life, and I'm not talking about actually going out and having sex, I'm talking about feeling like you could even attract a partner for whatever intention you have.
You're feeling your sexual status.
Yeah, if you don't feel like you're in a good place with that, you don't feel good, period.
Yeah. Well, I think, we call sexual status, I'm making this up as I go along, in the same way as you could talk about your financial status. I know well, and I literally live hand to mouth most of the time. And I know that when I've got more bills coming in and I realise that we're going to have to cut more cuts at home, I don't feel so much of a guy. I don't feel so... I don't want to phone my mates up. I don't want to do these things because I'm not bringing home the bacon.
Right.
And I think there's something very similar happens where you have your attractive status.
100%. 100%. And you could even say, Mike, not to belabor the point, but you could even say that the looks thing and the money thing and maybe the job and status thing, it all kind of comes back down to like that core kind of, libido kind of sex drive. Who are you as a man or as a woman? And I would say that money would even be secondary to how you sense the way you look is contributing to that. Like looks is, it's your body, right? It's you. And so it's really the primary factor when it comes to your sense of your libido or whatever that kind of biochemical thing that you were describing is, that feeling you get about your own self-worth and your own self-esteem. Now, I want to make one more point about this, Mike, while we're on the subject, and that is that, so I'm sure you've been to Looksmax, or because they talk about you a lot and they talk about me a lot.
No. I've made a point to going to lots of these places. One of the reasons I kind of changed the team that I was working with was they didn't want me to talk about these strange places. Because they said, oh, that's not good PR. And I'm thinking, well, sod PR. I'm just here for the truth. That doesn't, PR shouldn't affect the truth.
Yeah, no.
So, I understand, and look, Looksmax was just a world that I had no idea about until I went public with my orthodontic stuff, because I was coming at this from a place of health, not a place of aesthetics. But now I understand and I appreciate the aesthetic perspective. But I do want to say one thing about where I stand on how this all relates to aesthetics, or I do want to comment on the aesthetic aspect of this. And I want to say that in the Looksmax community, thinking that your personality has anything to do with your attractiveness is called being red-pilled. So the idea is that it's bullcrap to think that how you behave and how your personality is and how your mind is, you're not allowed to believe that that can contribute to your attractiveness as a person. And I just want to say, I disagree with that. And you call me red-pilled, call me cope. You know, these guys have their own jargon, by the way. Say what.
I see them making comments, and you know, I don't get me wrong, because I totally agree with you on this point, and I don't want to belittle people on this aspect, because everyone has a good opinion, and maybe they're taking a philosophy to the nth degree. However, they've probably got a point.
They do have a point, because look, there's these two poles, right? There's like the pickup community, and then there's the black-pilled looks-max community. And the pickup community says looks don't matter, it's all about personality. And then the looks-max community says personality doesn't matter, it's all about looks. And my experience has absolutely been that your personality obviously contributes to your attractiveness, and obviously your looks do too, but this idea that if you can't become better looking, that you're doomed, that you'll always have to have a low, you know, stand on a very low rung of the hierarchy of kind of attractiveness, that's not right. Like, we can all change the way we look to a certain degree, but we can all definitely change our personalities to a large degree, and we can become more attractive in our, you know, in our voice and in our behavior and in our ethic and in our personality fundamentally. And so, you know, it's not an encouraging message to tell someone that they will always be capped by, you know, essentially their bone structure as to how attractive they can be. Yeah, it matters. Obviously it matters, but you can also build yourself up as a person, and you can be an ugly yet attractive person. And look, I've seen it in many people, I want to send that message because I think it's an empowering message, and those guys should be aware that it's not all about looks. It's really not.
No, I don't think. Like many things, it's the yin and the yang. There's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't need to lecture you about these things.
Sure.
I do feel, and it's an important note here, that so many people are trying to follow me, and their structure is so deficient that they can't even get on the bottom rung of Mewing. And I think it's a sizable percentage. I would almost go as far as 50% of people are not going to be able to get on the bottom rung of Mewing because of deficient tongue volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I also make a comment, because someone contacted me recently saying that I was encouraging jaw joint problems by telling people to chew. And I think I hope I give enough warnings to people. You know, if you've got any risk of jaw joint problems, just don't go on this gargantuan chewing marathon. As a general rule, I would only advise people to tongue chew rather than chew with these hard gums. You may get benefits from chewing hard gums, but do so at your own risk.
Yeah.
You know, one of the problems with jaw joint problems is that once you've got a jaw joint problem, it can be very difficult to get out of a jaw joint problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good warning, Mike. And look, I never had jaw joint problems when I started Mewing, so I never, you know, had an issue with that. I was able to always go pretty hard without stressing out my TMJ. But yeah, it's a good warning, and I encourage people to listen to their bodies, and if they feel pain, stop.
And particularly, you look for scalloping on the sides of your tongue. If you have scalloping on the sides of your tongue, particularly notable scalloping, those are the marks, the impression of your teeth on the sides of your tongue, you're high risk of getting jaw joint problems. Put your fingers in your ears, put your little finger in your ear, pull it forwards, I can't hear anything, onto your jaw joint, and then open and close. And if your jaw joint sticks back a lot, or if you notice any clicks or bangs or gratings, easy on the chewing. You know, you could cause yourself problems.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Ron, was there anything more on that topic we thought we should cover?
No, not
cool.
On my end.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to interested in was outside the mouth. You know, we talk, there seems to be a huge focus on this area of the mouth. And I often say, I think that the maxilla is a keystone bone. If your maxilla's down and back, that's what's causing you a lot of problems. However, it's not the only thing. There's a huge range of things that you can do for self-improvement. And sometimes when you're struggling with mewing, you could look at something else. What areas have you found useful?
I started everything with this book. 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back.
Yep, I have the same book. I've met the author many times. We had a mutual friend, and I've drawn a lot of inspiration from the book.
I think that she doesn't get primal posture right when it comes to the face and the tongue and the, you know, she's blind to the role of the facial structure to how all that plugs into this, right? That being said, I think that if you had ideal facial structure, as most of the people she documents in this book do, you know, she's showing people in you know, developing parts of the world where cultures are less sedentary, and they're more, for whatever reason, Mike, they have better facial structure and they have better full body posture. And so I've used this book as a manual for rebuilding my full body posture. And so I started that in 2012, Mike. 2012, I've been using that book. And for years, I used this book without even being aware of the mewing connection. And I think I was like the author of this book, Esther Gokhale, in that I had blinders on where I just couldn't see the mewing stuff. Okay, but after experimenting with this book and rebuilding my posture from the toes up, I hit an impasse at the level of my neck where I couldn't do the neck posture that Esther Gokhale was trying to teach. And fundamentally, Mike, that is what led me to mewing, is because I started asking myself, why can't I hold my neck like these people in this book are holding their neck? And when I meditated on that, again, I was at a Buddhist monastery, I was literally meditating on it. When I meditated on that, I realized, okay, there's some kind of connection between the neck posture and the tongue posture. And whatever it is that's going on in my neck, the weak link seems to be in my mouth, because it's like I'm trying to get my tongue up, but it's not really staying there. As soon as I zone out into the meditation, I go slack and my tongue falls down and my neck posture collapses. And so what's going on here? So my point being is that this book is not perfect because it neglects mewing, right? And that's where you come in. But this book is good when it comes to the neck down. I think she's right.
Yeah, to give an interesting anecdote on this, many people will have seen the lecture I give in Harvard in 2000, and I guess it must have been something like 2014, 2015, where I think it's called Modern Melting Faces. It's a 30-minute presentation I give. And it was at that event that I met Esther the first time. And I saw her lecture, and I started talking to her about oral posture, and she just literally, she doesn't get it. We then had a mutual friend who brought her to give a lecture in Valencia about 2 years ago. And by then she's got it from this mutual friend. I haven't seen that reiterated into any of her publications yet, but I hope to see a new version of the book at some point, maybe with a mention of oral posture.
Well, it's not going to be an easy thing for her to do, because the mouth is the hardest part, because unlike any other part of the body, and when it comes to mewing, you're limited by your bone structure, so you can't teach that in a book.
No. And also you can't see what someone's doing.
It's invisible, you're right.
You know, I know where my tongue is.
By the lips. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
One day, when I've got enough research money, I will have an MRI scanner, vertical one, that I can put people in and know what's happening.
I think that sounds like a cool gadget that would be of great benefit to the world, Mike.
Yes, with a great benefit from me, but it's a few hundreds of thousands of pounds away at the moment.
You'll get there. One YouTube view at a time, Mike.
One YouTube view at a time, although I seem to give all of the funds of this away for the benefit of mankind. I'll have a holiday one day, just not soon.
Posterity will thank you, Mike.
They will. You sometimes don't know why you set out on a journey. But it's important in life to have, the passions. And nothing can replace a passion. There's no amount of money, no amount of anything can replace that ability to have a passion and to act on it.
Yeah.
Now, so the Go Clay book has helped greatly. Well, what other things do you think?
So yeah, the Go Clay book is really essential because I just keep coming back to this year after year. I keep coming back and realizing that I've made small steps in progress toward the ultimate goal of primal posture. So I can't stress that enough. This is like a book you'll keep coming back to over and over again, and it really takes, I would say it takes a decade to really figure that out, along with mewing. At the same time, you should work those two together. Another thing is, and we mentioned this already, but running. Okay, running is going to be one of those things that you can keep coming back to week after week, month after month, year after year, and you can keep using it as a mirror for the rest of whatever mewing or health stuff you're doing. Because Mike, the reason running is so great is because it's very unforgiving. If you don't run properly, it will hurt. It will hurt. You will have pain. And that pain is going to be your teacher. So whether or not, running causes you to have pain in your neck or have pain in your ankles and feet or knees, which is very common, if there's pain, something needs to change. And so
in many ways, you could define the maximum output of a human individual is their speed.
I never thought of it like that, but I think that's quite insightful, and I like that. Yeah, it's the whole body and the whole mind coming together in a 100% kind of exertion way, all at the same time, and yeah, it's an amazing thing to do, and we're born to run. And
Ron, what do you notice about the facial and dental form of the 100-meter sprint winners?
Ideal.
Google them sometime. I take anyone to Google them. Just see these guys. I want someone find me an image. I want an image of the 100 meters startups on the block, all grinning with these huge, great big dental arches. All of them. Always have. Actually, interesting, Usain Bolt seems to have the worst dental arch amongst them.
That's bizarre.
It's just bizarre, yeah. But I even got I got my sister-in-law to sit down, and I wanted the Olympic winners from the last 4 years and facial photographs of them all. I don't quite know what went wrong. She got the I think the Commonwealth winners for the last 10 years. Quite what went on then, but I just put them together, so the gold, silver and bronze from the last 3 years, so 9 individuals, and we laid them out, and all of them had huge, great big broad smiles and great facial form.
Yeah, right.
Across all sports, really. Look at the best MMA fighters. Look at the best soccer players.
It's interesting. The longer distance you go, so if you go to these long distance athletes, well, now it's not about that absolute peak of performance. It's about endurance. And then I think it's much more mental. When it's down to the absolute peak ability. So your 100-meter sprinter, that's utter ability. That's pure output. That's physical output. Those guys don't breathe. You don't need to breathe to do 100 meters.
Right. It's a drag. It's a drag race. It's essentially the biggest motor.
It is horsepower. It is just kick it. Whereas if you're going to do a long distance, you do a marathon. A hell of a lot's going to go through your mind during a marathon. Almost nothing goes through your mind during 100 meters. You don't have a chance for it to go through your mind. So I do see a difference. I see a lot of people, Mo Farrow, for example. He doesn't have the greatest facial form. Not bad, but he doesn't have the greatest facial form. Or airway spaces or tongue widths. But the 100 meters, those guys are tip-top.
That's a great point, and that never occurred to me, Mike, but I think you're right. That's an important distinction to draw. It's the 100-meter is really the ultimate kind of litmus test for what would require the most ideal structure, because essentially any other longer distance or endurance type sport or race,
it's less about the pure equipment and more about the training and
mental attitude,
the mental side.
Yeah.
Sorry, my camera went out again.
Okay.
All right, we're good. Yeah, that's a great point, Mike, and it never occurred to me, but it makes a lot of sense now. And it's funny, I was just looking at Cristiano Ronaldo yesterday, and if you look at him before he had braces, he was a mess. He was a mess, and so he obviously, I know it kind of looks like he has ideal structure at from a distance, but he really doesn't, and yet he still manages to be, one of the best in the world.
Ron, you put across a fascinating point, and in kind of way, I put this down as the Damon effect. So we had this in about 2000 to 2005. Dwight Damon, an orthodontist, developed these braces called the Damon Braces. And the idea was, rather than closely tying or fixing the brackets on the teeth to a wire, you just clipped a locks home so that you physically held the wire in place on the brackets. And then you put very wide wires, expansion. So you're trying to get as much expansion. And the idea was these wires were free sliding through these brackets. So that was going to get lots of width. And it fascinated me. And I talked to as many people doing the Damon system. I did a few cases. And what I took away from it was that when you put these Damon wires in someone's arches, if you tip the balance in someone who already had fairly good tongue posture, the tongue would go up in the roof of the mouth, you would get this massive expansion of the top dental arch, and then, you're correcting craniofacial dystrophy. So lots and lots of things start going right. The patient looks better, they feel better, they're raving about it, and they all put it down to the braces. And all you've really done is tip the balance. Clearly, the people who don't respond, they don't get the tongue on the roof of the mouth. It's a very different story. And the problem with statistics is you average it all out to see no effect. Now, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is one of those individuals where a little bit of expansion from normal orthodontics helped him gain changes that started a virtuous cycle of change. When I critically look at his face, and of course, for someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, there's no shortage of images, I think subtly his whole facial form and body and neck posture looks that little bit better after he had the orthodontics done.
Something happened between when he was a teenager and to where he is now, and it was a major improvement, I think, not just in the teeth, because now that you mention it, you're right, it wasn't just his teeth that seemed to improve with the years. His face did seem to get more angular.
He's improved. He's got a very mild upswing in facial form. And, it's interesting. I've observed that in more than one situation. People seem to suddenly improve. And, I don't think I want to put all of the blame and problems down to bad orthodontics, because sometimes orthodontics can be very, very beneficial to people.
Right.
But it depends, again, on what you do yourself. And someone like Cristiano Ronaldo was pushing himself to the limit all the time. So when someone opened the gate, he was already there, roaring to go. And he just helped him move forward.
Sure. Yeah. That strikes me as true. Mike, I got to plug my computer in.
Okay, well, I've just had the phone ringing in the background. Let me just check. I'll stop this